32 years of success of the Carthage Swine Conference with Brianne Skien. Welcome, Brianne.
Welcome, thank you.
So you're the general manager at Carthage Veterinary Service, and you're championing the Carthage Swine Conference this year. I've got the announcement, and the key focus of the conference is execution and sustainability in a world of distractions. Can you explain this and the core details of the conference?
Absolutely. So our goal this year is to address many of the topics that are affecting not only our industry, but the world head on. We recognize that since 2020, we've seen nothing but distractions. So whether that be COVID and how it's changed our business and processes, product shortages, health, increasing importance of disease elimination, or even an ever-changing and evolving labor pool, those are topics that we want to kind of hit head on. And so really these issues are not specific to our industry, and we thought it would be appropriate to address some of the distractions at the start of the conference. And then once we address those, we'll dive into how do we work through those and plan to execute and sustain in our industry despite those challenges.
So there's no virtual this year?
Correct. Virtual was great in the right situation, and I think in the right industry. I think the technology that we've learned since COVID has been pretty amazing to see. I think we saw a lot of progress in a short amount of time, and allows us to connect with people quicker than we've ever have in the past. But I think that platform was good for what it was at the time, and we embraced that during the time where we needed to do that because we didn't feel safe being in person. But we think our industry is one that thrives on connections and the networking and gets a lot more out of in person. So we thought that after that 1 year of virtual, we wanted to go back to in person and keep it strictly as that.
So what other changes are you making?
Yeah, our changes and our goals for this year go hand in hand. We've been providing roughly the same format and setup for conference over the past 20 years, which has been pretty successful, mind you. But people have evolved, and we're to the point where we needed to evolve with them in order to keep our conference relevant. So where we have always been really good is the content portion of conference. Those in the industry that know that have come to our conference, they know they can hear relevant, valuable information. They can take it back to their farm or their office, and they can start implementing and working on it immediately. So this is the part of conference that we aren't changing in a broad sense, but I do feel like we've really beefed up that content this year. And this year we have 8 different topics that we'll focus on throughout the day. So that's one of our top changes. Also, the goal we had this year and what led to many of our changes was to make sure that the trade show and the networking portion of the conference provided more value. We had some very straightforward feedback last year that some exhibitors didn't see the value in the trade show because they didn't have time in front of the veterinarians, the producers that attend. And we had to agree, and that's mainly because the key product that we were providing at our conference is the content. Great content, but they were missing that networking time. And so the trade show was essentially competing for the attention. So our goal became to provide valuable content, quality networking, both in the same event. And we felt very confident that we could achieve that with some changes. So the biggest change that they're probably going to see is the trade show and exhibitors will be set up throughout the day as normal. But really the main events begins once the keynote speaker finishes. And at that time, we're going to start a party. We're going to have a tailgate trade show, which we're very excited about. Barbecue food, drinks, and time devoted to networking with attendees, exhibitors, speakers, producers, all in the same room. Really having a good time and talking about the things that they want to connect on and networking. And we really think that that is kind of key, as we talked about earlier, on the networking and how important it is in person. And so that's probably the biggest change that you're going to see this year.
So adding a bit of fun and fun to it.
Absolutely.
So you've been close to all aspects of planning the event, taking charge on everything and showing leadership. So can you give an overview of the fine attention to detail that we may not appreciate that it takes to put on a great event like this?
Absolutely. Funny you should ask. I think I have some pretty relevant perspective on this topic. I have to take a moment to give a shout out to Karen Jacko, who used to oversee every detail of our conference and has for the last lot of years. She took a step back this spring from corporate world and is farming full time. So we had to relearn a bit of what she had just done that looked seamless to some of us and relearn that from the outside perspective. So this is my first conference with direct oversight, but it's been a blast to plan. We felt that this year was as good a time as ever to make some of those changes that have been back of mind for a few years. So we went with it. I'm really glad we did. It's not without a lot of work from a lot of people within the company, though. There are 6 of us that have come together to make this happen, and it's take a lot of different personalities, perspectives, and types of people to get it done. I'm more of the big picture type, so I love to think outside the box, brainstorm ideas, figure out how we can connect with attendees, but the details are how things get done, and an event like this goes off without a hitch. So we have an administrative coordinator and a marketing intern that have been key to make sure those details are not missed. Without those hundreds of details, we quite literally wouldn't have conference that you see when you show up in person.
How important do you think networking and learning are, and how do they sync together?
I kind of touched on this earlier regarding our goals and the changes we're making. So we think it's obviously very important. It was one of the key drivers for me to continue to put on this conference and continue investing in this event. I'm from outside the industry, so I love that I can come to an event like this and learn practical and real information that will help me understand and do my job better. But I'm also a people person, so I like to be able to connect with those people that I haven't seen maybe a couple times throughout the year and I do business with. To me, it's connecting the dots and thinking big picture as we are prepared to take on the second half of the year.
So can you provide a short answer or response on the topics? I'll kind of list them one by one.
Absolutely. I'm not an expert in any of these, but I can give you a quick oversight.
Okay. Disease elimination strategies.
Yeah, really PRRS, Seneca virus, myco, understanding shedding and sampling, the process of those viruses, and then how do we work towards elimination of them? And ultimately, maybe what are some of the economics that we can use to measure the value and the success of those eliminations?
The future of data analytics.
Really from data mining to actual analytics, how do we get there? How do we get from one to the other? And really once you get there, how do you use the reports to drive decisions that matter and lead us into the future of predictive analysis?
And modern human resources.
So what's the current job market? I mean, we're all pretty aware of what's going on in the world. So what is that current job market? How do we solve those labor issues? And what's the future look like? In short, how must we change how we approach this in order to evolve with the times?
Prescribed nutrition.
Oh, this is really approaching nutrition from a different perspective. How do we look at nutrition needs from a prescription approach? And understanding the different strategies to make a difference, especially in the world of high feed costs, high pig prices, and high fat prices.
And what about sow mortality?
So here we are going to look holistically at this issue, defining the problem, what are the risk factors, what are the root causes, and then how do we look towards sow longevity?
So if we look back over the last 32 years, is there a standout moment or breakthrough conference that you recall?
I don't have a ton of perspective because, like I said, this is really my first that I've been involved with the details, and I haven't been around for the last 32 years. So I did do some digging on past conferences and where we have made some of our biggest changes that I think likely had the most impact on the current state of the event. My records go back to 1996. I think before that it was all on paper. So I went back to 96 and it looks like we had like 13 speakers that year. This year we have 40. So some perspective there. And the last time in 96, that was the last time that this event was held in Carthage, and that was at our local extension center. So from 96 to 97 is where I think the biggest swing and shift came from. In 97, we expanded the conference to include multiple breakout sessions like we do that now, more topics, more speakers. We moved it to Western Illinois University that year and had more attendees overall. So I would say that move is what changed the feel of the event and what created the template for a successful conference in the future. And I think it worked. We roughly kept that same format and location for the next 22 years. And that was until we went virtual during COVID, and then ultimately last year changed to Quincy. So definitely an evolution. I wish I could have seen the 1990 conference because I'm sure to compare that to where we are today, pretty drastic. Kind of went from a local, just a community here of those producers that are close to Carthage to really a national event that draws in people from all over.
So 1990, it was more kind of a local, and now you've gone national.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think 1990 was pretty local in that that was kind of the spread of our network at the time. So it was just kind of a different world that we lived in. I didn't have anything in print that we had on hand here. I think that's been lost in some moves and transitions, but I'd have to think that it really didn't branch out, and we probably didn't have, I'm guessing maybe, I would guess less than 100 attendees, but I don't know for sure.
So we touched on the topics a little bit. You mentioned tailgating, having some fun. One of the other things we read about is there's more to expect from the event than some of the things we've talked about. Is there one more thing you have for us, or that people don't know that you want to share?
Yeah, overall, I mean, it's really the combination of everything we've talked about. Like I said, I feel like depending on who you are that comes to our conference, you probably have that perspective, right? If you are a producer, you're coming for the content, and everything else is kind of the sidelines. If you're a vendor or an exhibitor, you're coming in with that perspective, and that's where it's at. And this year, we really took a step back, and like I mentioned, our goal was to make it valuable to everybody, and really, and really for them to see more than one benefit in it. And so when I say that, one of the things we've done this year was we've put the general content outside of the breakouts. So our general content that's in the mornings, that's kind of the overall talking about the distractions in the world. And then our finishing conclusion with our keynote, we put those in the main hall, which is where the booths will be set up. And so in doing that, our goal was to connect more so those vendors that are there, those sponsors that are there, and those producers, and then us as a team. And so we really tried to make sure that everybody was in the same location as much as possible throughout the day, again, to see more benefit and connection than typically they have in the past. And that was very intentional for that reason. And then we'll still have our breakouts and whatnot, but we just really wanted it to be, when we think of what we want people to know our conference as, we want them for this to be one of the events that they choose to attend throughout the year as their time becomes more valuable.
So it's going to become one of the must attend events.
That's our goal.
So final question, are you good for a finish this sentence?
Sure.
So the one thing that makes our conference different from the rest is,
I think this is probably a to be determined. I think if we can pull off what we've set out, what our goals are, if we can pull that off and we can put on a conference that we really think, again, provides the value, I think that's where we become different from the rest. And that's not to compare it to any of the state shows or any of the other specialty conferences that are put on. It's really, our goal is to lie in the middle somewhere there, and to balance those out and to have the content and the interaction that really I don't think you get anywhere else. And so that's really where I think that we're different. But a lot of that is because of some of the changes that we made this year. And so to finish that sentence, I think it's check back in a month, and we'll see how that comes out. And this year we really want we're going to ask for a lot of feedback. We realized last year we got some pretty valuable feedback, but people aren't always open to sharing that because they don't think we want to hear. One thing that myself and those others that have been involved in it really want to make sure that we get that feedback. And so we're going to ask for it throughout the conference to make sure that it is, because my philosophy on really everything I do is we should provide the value that people are paying for and they want to come for. And if we don't, we probably no longer need to be doing it.
Yeah, you want to tailor it to your customers and make it the best experience.
Absolutely. And that's customers, vendors. I mean, we've got a lot of people within this industry that we work really closely with, and we want it to be just as valuable to all of them.
Thanks for all the hard work on the event and hopping on with us today.
Absolutely. We appreciate your support of it as well.
I know people can register at conference.hogvet.com.
Absolutely. They can register there. We have a Facebook page. If you look up Carthage Swine Conference, they can follow along there. And then on LinkedIn, we continue to announce the speakers. We have a great lineup of speakers this year. Like I said, I think we have over 40 in total. And some of those are within our system, and some of them are brand new that we've never had a conference anymore. So follow along on any of those to see who's coming.